There's a moment I know pretty well. You sit there, you know what would matter, you know what would probably move your life forward, and still something inside you does not really move. Not because you do not care, not because the thing is meaningless. It is actually the opposite. You care enough that the task has weight now. It is not just a random thing anymore. It is connected to your future, your identity, your standards, maybe even the person you are trying to become. And because of that, you wait for the right state. You wait until you feel clear, until your energy is better, until the room feels right, or until the day feels like a proper beginning. And then the day passes and nothing really happened. I do not say that from some perfect place where I have mastered this forever. I know the pattern. I know what it is like to have a strong vision in your head and still lose hours because the feeling was not there. I know what it is like to build something, to care about a channel, a project, a body of work, a bigger mission, and then still find myself negotiating with the first step, you know? And that is why I do not want to talk about this like you are lazy or broken. I do not think that this is the real story. I think the real story is that many of us learn to treat the right feeling as the entry ticket. Like we are only allowed to begin when the mood gives permission. And that is where things get dangerous because feelings are not stable enough to lead your whole life. They change too easily. You know, one morning feels powerful and the future feels obvious. The next morning you feel flat. And suddenly the same future feels even further away. One evening you are convincing that everything is about to change. And the next day you're back in the same old negotiating. And if you let every emotional shift decide what matters, your life starts moving in waves. You do not build from values anymore, you build from state. When the state is good, you move. When the state is bad, you disappear. And after enough time, that creates a version of you that feels inconsistent, even though deep down you may still care a lot. That is why I want to be careful with the title of this episode. It is not really about never waiting or just forcing yourself. That would be too simple. Sometimes you are genuinely tired. Sometimes your nervous system needs rest, or sometimes the plan is way too heavy and needs to be adjusted. I'm not here to turn you into a machine. This is not Riova. This is not what my channel is all about or what I want this channel to become. What I am interested in is the honest middle, the place where you can listen to yourself without letting every feeling become the boss. The place where you can say, okay, today is not the perfect day, but I can still do the next honest thing. And maybe that is the core of this whole message. You do not need to feel ready to do something real. You do not need to be perfect, emotional, stable before taking the next step. You do not need to feel powerful before doing something that builds power. A lot of the time, readiness comes after movement, not before it. You start with the body you have, the energy you have, the uncertainty you still have, the messy mornings you have, you're currently going through, right? And then through action, something shifts. Not always dramatically, not always instantly, but you begin proving to yourself that the feeling does not have to arrive first. And that moment is a pretty big part of why I make these videos. Somewhere in the first phase, Riova was never meant to be just another motivational channel. I'm not interested in screaming at you for 10 minutes and making you feel guilty enough to do one productive thing, you know? I make these videos because I am trying to understand the deeper pattern behind building a life, building a mind, building a project or something you can actually be proud of. I talk about self mastery, about creator reality, about discipline, truth, focus, and ownership, because these are the same things I have to face in my own path too. I'm not above the process. That's very important to say for me. I'm inside of it. And the point of this channel is to put out a honest language to what it feels like to become someone who can actually carry the life they say they want. So when I talk about waiting to feel like it, I'm not pointing a finger at you from a distance. You know, I'm talking about one of those quiet patterns that can steal years if you do not catch it. Because it does not always look dramatic, it often looks reasonable. I will do it later. I need a cleaner head start first. I will start tomorrow when I have a better energy. And sometimes that is true. But sometimes it is just the soft voice of avoidance. Sometimes it is the part of you that wants the result, but not the uncomfortable first 10 minutes. And the difficult thing is that those first 10 minutes are often the whole doorway. I have noticed this with recording, with creating, with building routines, with almost everything that matters. The hardest part is not always the whole thing, it is the entering of the thing. Once you are inside the work, something often becomes easier. The mind stops negotiating as much, the resistance loses some of its drama, and the task becomes real instead of imaginated. But before you start, the mind can turn it into this giant emotional object. Suddenly, it is not just recording a video, it is your whole identity. It is whether the channel works or it is whether you are good enough, you know? It is whether people care. And when a simple action becomes loaded with that much meaning, of course you wait for the perfect feeling. You're not only avoiding the task, you're avoiding the pressure you attach to it. This is why one of the best things you can do is to make the first step smaller and more honest. Not easier in a lazy way, smaller in a way that gets you moving. If the full version feels too heavy, do the entry version. Open the file, put the shoes on, sit on the desk for 10 minutes, record the first rough take, or start one badly tasked on purpose if you have to. Because the goal in the moment is not perfection, the goal is contact. You're trying to reconnect with the path instead of standing outside of it, waiting until your emotions make the door feel safer. This is something I want you to take really serious. A smaller standard is still a standard. That sentence can change a lot if you actually live it. Maybe today is not the day for the full perfect routine. Fine. But can I still be an honest day? Can you still do something honest today? Maybe you cannot do the whole session today. Fine. But can you do the version that keeps that energy alive? Maybe you do not have the energy to produce your best work. Fine. But can you still touch the work in a way that says, I'm not gone? That matters, you know? Because one of the most damaging patterns is not having an imperfect day. It is turning an imperfect day into a completely disappearance, you know? This is where many people lose self trust. Not because they miss once, but because they disappear after missing. The mood drops, the plan gets messy, and suddenly the whole path feels broken. Then a few days later, they need a big emotional reset to come back. And that creates a cycle where every return needs drama. But real consistency is much quieter. It is not the absence of bad days, it is the ability to stay connected through them, to reduce without quitting, to adjust without abandoning, to say, okay, today is not the ideal version, but I can still keep the thread. If this message here is landing for you, this is also the kind of reason why the self mastery playlist exists on my channel. Not as random episodes to consume and forget, but as place to return when you notice yourself drifting. There are videos on broken promising, starting over, needing more truth, escaping yourself, or nobody is coming to save you. They are all pointed at the same deeper thing from different angles. How do you become someone who can lead yourself when the emotional weather changes? So, if this message speaks to you, do not just watch it as a nice idea. Stay with the series. Come back to it when you need it to realign yourself. Use it as a mirror, not just content. Because the truth is motivation is useful, but it is not a foundation. I love motivation when it comes. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with the feeling inspired, you know? It's great. Sometimes one good thought, one video, conversation, one walk can bring you back to yourself. That is beautiful. But motivation should be a spark, not the whole engine. If the only reason you act is because you feel motivated, then every low energy day becomes dangerous. Every flat morning becomes a threat. Every messy week becomes a reason to quit the whole path. And that is too unstable for anything meaningful. Anything real you're trying to build needs a deeper anchor than mood. It needs values. It needs a standard. It needs a simple way to return, not a perfect system, not some extreme routine that only works when life is clean. Just a rhythm that can survive normal human days. And normal human days are not always inspiring. Sometimes they are just ordinary. Sometimes they are heavy. Sometimes they are just kind of blank, you know? Your work still has to have a place there. Not the biggest place every day, but a place. Because if your dreams only exist on the days you feel amazing, they do not really have a home in your life yet. That is where the real shift happens. You stop asking, do I feel like doing this today? And start asking, what is the honest version of this today? That question is much kinder and much stronger. It does not deny how you feel. It does not pretend every day is the same, but it also does not let your feelings erase the whole path. The honest version may be smaller, it may be slower, it may be less impressive from the outside, but it exists. And when you do the honest version, you create evidence. Evidence that you are not controlled by every mood. Evidence that your work still has some weight. And evidence that the future you say you want can survive an imperfect Tuesday. That kind of evidence builds a very different confidence. Not the hype confidence out there, not the confidence you feel when everything is going well and you are in the perfect state. I mean the quieter confidence of knowing, even when I am not at my best, I do not fully abandon myself. That changes how you carry a whole life. You become less afraid of bad days. You still have them, of course, but they no longer feel like they can destroy the whole path. You learn how to move slower without stopping. You learn how to rest without disappearing, and you learn how to simplify without calling it failure. And this is so freaking important because the goal is not to become harsh with yourself. I do not want you to hear this and turn it into another weapon. The point is not, I must always push no matter what. This is not maturity. Sometimes the mature move is to rest. Sometimes the mature move is to lowering the load. Sometimes the mature move is to admitting that the full version is too much today. But the mature move is almost never unconsciously disappearance. It is almost never drifting from 3 days and calling it self-care. And almost never letting one mood rewrite your whole identity, you know? The mature move is choosing consciously. That is the difference between being led by feelings and being in relationship with them. If you are led by feelings, they decide. If you're in a relationship with them, you listen, but you also lead. You can say, I feel resistance, so I will make the first step smaller. And that is a wise step. But it is very different from I feel resistance, so I will wait until I become a different person. That small difference here is where self mastery actually lives. And maybe this is the personal part I want to bring into. Building Riova has taught me that I cannot wait for every recording day to feel magical. I cannot wait until every idea feels perfect or every script feels effortless, every thumbnail is obvious or every video feels guaranteed to work. If I did that, this channel would barely exist. At some point, the work has to happen inside real life, with real energy, with uncertainty, with imperfect moods, with days where I feel connected and days where I have to find the connection by entering the work. And that is probably true to for your thing too, you know, for your project. Whatever you are building, it will eventually ask you to show up without the perfect emotional soundtrack. That might be the most important sentence here. The work has to happen inside real life, not inside the fantasy version of life where you are always rested, clear, confident, and ready. Real life. The one with imperfect mornings, the one with distractions, the one where sometimes you do not feel like the person you're trying to become. If the path cannot exist there, it cannot exist anywhere, because that is where your life actually happens. So today, do not make this complicated. Choose one thing that matters and define the honest version of it, not the perfect one. The honest version, that the small first step. Maybe that is 20 minutes of focused work. Maybe it is one rough paragraph or putting your phone away and entering the task for 10 minutes. Maybe it is even one small promise kept before the day ends. You know, one simple thing. Make it specific, but make it also small enough that your mood cannot turn it into a huge negotiating. Then do it, especially if you do not feel fully ready. Not to prove that you are superhuman, to prove that the feeling is not the master. And after you do it, notice the aftertaste, not the result, the aftertaste. Notice how it feels to know you did not abandon the path. Notice how it feels to stay connected, even on an imperfect day. That feeling is so important. That is self-trust built or being rebuilt in real time. It is quiet. It is not dramatic, but it is so powerful. And if you repeat it enough, your life starts becoming less dependent on emotional highs and you become steadier, more grounded, more trustworthy to yourself. So, no, you do not need to feel like it every time. And you do not need to shame yourself when the feeling is not there. You need a way back to the work that is smaller, cleaner, and more honest than waiting for the perfect mood. You need to stop treating readiness like a requirement and start treating action like the thing that often creates readiness. You need to let the imperfect version count because the imperfect version is often the one that keeps the whole path alive. And if this message here right now in this video hits something real in you, stay with the self mastery playlist somewhere here on the screen. Watch all the other episodes about starting over or needing a big reset after the feeling fades. Watch the one or about you keep saying you need more proof or anything like that. The whole series is there for it. This is what Riova is here for you. Not to yell at you, not to shame you, but to help you see your patterns clearly enough to lead yourself through them. Because you do not need to wait until you feel ready. Sometimes you become ready by beginning.